When my wife first said the words open marriage, I thought she was joking. We were sitting at our favorite restaurant halfway through dinner when she set down her wine glass and said it as casually as if she were asking for dessert. "I just think we've grown," she said, eyes bright, voice rehearsed. "We should explore other connections. Emotionally, physically." I blinked at her. "You mean like seeing other people?" She nodded, smiling. "With boundaries, of course. Rules. Total honesty." I'd been married to Claire for 5 years, and in that moment I realized I didn't recognize the woman sitting across from me. Her tone wasn't apologetic or uncertain. It was confident, excited even. I tried to laugh it off, but she didn't join in. That's when I understood. She meant it. "You're serious?" I asked quietly. "Completely," she said. "Look, I love you, Mark, but I think this could make us stronger, more honest. It's not cheating if we agree to it." The word cheating hung in the air like smoke. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I just nodded slowly. "So, rules then?" Her face lit up, relieved that I wasn't fighting her. "Exactly. We'll make a list together. What's allowed, what's not. Full transparency." That night, she typed it all up clear, detailed, even included a date and our signatures at the bottom like a contract. It was almost funny how official she wanted it to feel. Rule 1. Honesty at all times. Rule 2. No emotional attachment. Rule 3. Either partner can end the arrangement at any time. Rule 4. Both partners have equal freedom, except as I'd find out later, equal didn't mean what she thought it did. For the first few weeks, she was radiant. New clothes, late nights out, a phone that never left her side. Whenever I asked how things were going, she'd smile and say, "It's just fun. You should try it too." I told her I might, and she laughed, not cruelly, but dismissively, like she never imagined I actually would. That was her first mistake, because if Claire wanted an open marriage, then that's what she'd get, just not in the way she expected. And when the time came to show her what fair really meant, the very document she proudly typed up would become her undoing. She thought she was opening a door to freedom. What she didn't realize was that she'd also signed the key to her own downfall. Before all this, Claire and I were the definition of stability. We met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions, and got married in our late 20s. She was driven, organized, and fiercely independent. I loved that about her. For years, we built a quiet, simple life. Mornings with coffee on the porch, date nights once a week, inside jokes that only made sense to us. I wasn't naive enough to think marriage was perfect, but I thought ours was solid. The first crack appeared about a year before the open marriage conversation. She started talking about how people evolve and how long-term monogamy isn't natural. I thought it was. It's just her testing ideas. She'd been reading self-help blogs and watching podcasts about relationship freedom. I laughed it off. That was my mistake. Over time, she became distant. Not cold, just distracted. She started working late, joining new social groups, spending more weekends away with friends from work. The Claire I knew had been replaced by someone chasing constant validation. When she brought up the open marriage, it suddenly all made sense. This wasn't about connection. It was about permission. I tried to reason with her. "Claire, we can fix what's missing between us. We don't need to add more people to the equation." She smiled patiently, the way someone does when they've already made up their mind. "Not about fixing something broken, Mark. It's about growing." But deep down, I knew she wasn't growing toward me. Still, I agreed, not out of weakness, but out of curiosity. I wanted to see how far she'd take it tan, maybe. A part of me hoped she'd realize how absurd it all was once she saw me willing to play along. She didn't. Within a month, she was meeting friends several nights a week. One evening, she came home glowing, humming as she unpacked her bag. That was the night I knew she'd crossed the line from fantasy to action. I didn't confront her. I didn't check her phone or follow her. I simply watched. Because sometimes, patience is the sharpest weapon you can wield. One night, I suggested we update our agreement, just to make sure everything was still fair. Her eyes lit up like I'd validated her whole idea. "Of course," she said. "I'll even print a clean version so we can both sign it again." She did. She dated it, signed it, and even wrote in the new rule herself. Either partner engaging emotionally or physically with another person acknowledges this as mutual consent to non-monogamy. That was the sentence that sealed her fate. I didn't know exactly when or how I'd use it, but I knew I would. And by the time she realized I'd been playing the long game, it would be far too late to change the rules. After she signed that updated agreement, something inside me shifted. I stopped arguing. I stopped chasing. I became calm, and in that calm, I started paying attention, really paying attention. Claire was convinced she held all the control. She'd toss a casual going out with friends tonight over her shoulder, not realizing I'd already seen the texts lighting up her phone messages from a man named Aaron, her colleague. I didn't confront her. I just smiled, told her to have fun, and went about my night. Meanwhile, I started collecting. Screenshots, calendar entries, hotel receipts she forgot to delete from our shared email. All of it neatly organized in a folder labeled Finances. She thought she was winning. She didn't realize I was quietly documenting everything she proudly called freedom at work. I even met with my lawyer just to update some estate plans. He raised an eyebrow when I showed him the open marriage contract she'd written and signed. "This is gold," he said. "You realize this essentially gives you grounds for fault-based divorce on her terms?" I nodded slowly. That's the point. Weeks passed. Her absences grew longer, her excuses thinner. When she finally told me, "Mark, I think I'm falling in love with someone else," I didn't flinch. I just said, "I'm happy for you." That threw her off. She blinked, searching my face for anger, but I'd already replaced anger with strategy. Later that night, I made sure the camera in our home office was working. When she returned, I asked her to go over the rules again for clarity. I pressed record, pretending to take notes. She repeated every word, smiling like she was explaining enlightenment to a child. That video became Exhibit B she still didn't know.
Wow.
A week later, I hinted that maybe I should see someone too. She froze. "Wait, that's not what I meant by open marriage," she said. "You don't have to." I tilted my head. "Why not?" "I thought this was about growth." She bit her lip. "It's just different for me. Different." That word hung between us like poison. I smiled and said nothing, because I'd already scheduled a consultation with another lawyer to finalize my side of things. Claire thought she'd opened the gates of liberation. But in reality, she'd just signed her own confession. And soon, everyone including her would see just how fair her version of freedom really was. It was a Thursday morning when the dominoes finally began to fall. Claire came home late again, humming to herself, her lipstick smudged and her perfume clouding the doorway. I was sitting at the table with 2 cups of coffee, hers waiting, untouched. "Rough night?" I asked casually. She smirked. "Long meeting?" "Wouldn't understand, Mark. Some of us are still figuring out who we are." I nodded, sipping my coffee. "Oh, I understand perfectly." Her smile faded a little. "What's that supposed to mean?" I looked her dead in the eye. "It means I finally agree with you." Before she could reply, I slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots, timestamps, and the infamous open marriage agreement with her name signed neatly at the bottom. She blinked, confused, then nervous. "What is this?" "Documentation," I said softly. "Of everything you've been doing under the rules you wrote." Her breath caught. You've been spying on me?" "No," I said, calm as a surgeon. "You gave me consent. You said honesty was part of our new arrangement. I just made sure it worked both ways." She reached for the folder, her hands trembling. "Mark, I didn't mean for it to." I interrupted her. "I know, you didn't mean for me to understand my worth, right? You wanted freedom without consequence?" I stood, pulled out a second envelope, and placed it beside her coffee. This one was heavier official. "That's from my attorney," I said. "We filed for divorce, citing fault based on adultery." Her jaw dropped. "Adultery? You agreed to this?" I smiled faintly. "You did?" "I just followed your rules." She stared, the color draining from her face. "You can't do this, Mark. That document doesn't count." "It does," I said quietly, "because it's signed, dated, and filmed." "You made the rules, Claire. I just played by them." The silence stretched for a full minute. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head as the reality hit. Then came the denial, the anger, the guilt flashing across her expression like storm clouds. "You're ruining everything," she shouted. "No," I replied, stepping toward the door. "You already did. I'm just finishing the paperwork." When I left that morning, she was sitting at the table, staring at her own handwriting, her self-forwarded downfall. And as the door clicked shut behind me, I realized something. Peace doesn't always come from forgiving someone. Sometimes it comes from letting their actions prove who they really are. The following week was a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and silence. Claire stopped staying at the house, choosing instead to hide out with a friend. The same friend who'd once told her, "You deserve to explore." I wondered if that friend still thought it sounded empowering now. When word got around about the divorce filing, her confidence cracked. Suddenly, she wasn't the free-spirited woman discovering herself. She was the wife who'd handed her husband legal proof of her own infidelity. Her parents called me first. Her mom sounded hesitant. "Mark," Claire said, "you're overreacting. That you're twisting things." I sighed, calm and steady. "Mrs. Dalton, she can show you the contract. Her handwriting's right there." The rules were hers. Just live by them. There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "I'm so sorry, Mark. The apology wasn't necessary, but it said everything." The next day, I met with my lawyer again. He was grinning when I walked in. "She's already panicking," he said. "Apparently her boyfriend didn't know you two were still legally married." I raised an eyebrow. "He does now." "Let's just say he's been advised to stay out of the picture, permanently." It wasn't triumph I felt. It was relief. The kind that comes after holding your breath for too long. Claire, on the other hand, tried everything: texts, tears, and finally desperation. "Can we talk?" One message read, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed to feel alive again." I didn't respond. Then came the late-night call. Her voice cracked through the receiver. "Mark, please. I made a mistake. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." I almost laughed on out of cruelty, but disbelief. "Claire," I said softly, "you asked for freedom. I'm just giving it to you." The line went quiet. She hung up. By the time the first hearing arrived, her confident posture had vanished. She sat across from me at the mediation table, eyes red, hands clasped tightly. When the attorney presented her signed open marriage agreement as evidence, she couldn't even look up. My lawyer spoke evenly. "Your client explicitly established her intent to engage in relationships outside of the marriage. This document, signed and dated, supports fault-based grounds." The judge skimmed the pages, then nodded. Claire's lawyer had no defense. How could he? The evidence wasn't mine. It was hers. When it was over, I walked outside into the sunlight, feeling weightless. Years of emotional confusion, erased by her own arrogance. That night, I sat on the patio with a beer, listening to the quiet hum of the city. My phone buzzed again, her name flashing one last time. I didn't open it. I'd already said everything that needed saying, just not with words. She moved out completely last week. Rumor is, the open marriage guy ghosted her once the papers were filed. Life has a strange sense of balance sometimes. It's been 3 months since the divorce was finalized. The house feels different, not quiet, but not empty. For the first time in years, that silence doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like peace. When I wake up, I make coffee and sit by the window. No tension, no lies, no pretending that open meant anything but broken. Claire tried reaching out again a few weeks ago. Her text was short. "I hope you're happy now." I didn't reply. Happiness isn't something you owe an explanation for. It's something you earn after learning where your boundaries are. I've thought a lot about what led us there. The truth is, I wasn't perfect either. I let her redefine our marriage until I didn't recognize it anymore. I kept forgiving behavior I should have questioned. I kept confusing peace with silence. Now, I understand the difference. Her freedom was just permission to escape accountability. And when that permission ran out, she had no one left to blame but herself. My lawyer called last week to close out the last of the financial details. He chuckled when he said, "You know, Mark, I've never seen a case close itself like that. She practically wrote your victory statement." He wasn't wrong. I looked at that signed open marriage document one last time before filing it away. Her neat signature stared back at me like a monument to irony. It was the weapon she forged herself, the proof that her version of fair had always been one-sided. I didn't destroy it. I didn't need to. It already did its job. Since then, I've started therapy, joined a running group, and even traveled to Colorado for a week, Just me and the mountains. Somewhere on that trail, watching the sunrise, I realized how much energy I'd spent trying to convince someone to value what I offered freely. Never again. I learned that fairness isn't about giving someone every chance to hurt you. It's about knowing when to stop giving chances. Claire, from what I hear, is figuring herself out. I genuinely hope she does. Her chapter in my story has ended, and for once I'm not rereading it. Sometimes justice doesn't need drama. Sometimes it looks like a quiet man sipping coffee in a peaceful house, knowing he didn't need to break anyone. Just let the truth speak for itself, because in the end, she taught me one unforgettable lesson. When someone writes the rules to hurt you, the kindest thing you can do is let them live by them. If you've made it this far, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.